Hi, and welcome to Finding Fish for Food or Fun. In the next hour, we're going to explore the Great Lakes Fresh Fish Finder and meet 6 businesses that produce, harvest, and sell fish in the Great Lakes region. I'm Nicole Wright with Ohio Sea Grant, and this webinar is presented by the Great Lakes Aquaculture Collaborative. So this webinar is presented by the Great Lakes Aquaculture Collaborative. And this is a federal university partnership to bring science together with communities for solutions that work. In the Great Lakes Aquaculture Collaborative are all of the Sea Grant programs you see here in light blue. The project is led by Minnesota Sea Grant, and our goal is to provide science-based information and activities that support an environmentally responsible, competitive, and sustainable aquaculture industry in the Great Lakes region. You can visit our website to learn more about all of the different research, outreach, and educational activities that we have currently going on and archived from the past as well. Today we'll take questions in the chat. If you have any technical difficulties, you can also put that in the chat and we'll help you out with those. For now, I'd like to introduce the Great Lakes Fresh Fish Finder. This is a website that was designed to provide consumers with an easy-to-use map of fish sellers and locations of businesses throughout the Great Lakes region. For businesses, the site provides the opportunity for a business to give us their description, where and how to buy their product, what product they sell, where they're located, and other details. You can also link to their Facebook page, their Twitter, their Instagram, and so forth if they have those available. So today we're going to take a tour of the different type of product types that are featured on the Great Lakes Fish Finder and 6 different businesses that are here in the region. And to get us started with that, we have Lauren Jaskovich from Extension from Michigan Sea Grant, an extension educator there. She's going to help us dive into the site and meet the businesses and explore those product types.
Awesome. Thank you, Nicole. Good morning, afternoon, everybody. A little bit of both here, but I'll help guide us through the different types of products that are listed on this website. It features local producers in the Great Lakes region. And so we'll start with the product type of bait fish. So bait fish are used by anglers for fishing, or they can be put into ponds to enhance an ecosystem. Bait fish are also called live bait or minnows. And so we do have local producers who specifically produce for bait. And today we will be highlighting Barry Thole in Lincoln, Minnesota with his business, Lincoln Bait. Take it away.
The Minnesota Sea Grant Fish, Food, and Aquaculture Program presents Bait Fish Production, featuring Barry Thole, owner of Lincoln Bait in Staples, Minnesota, and Don Schreiner, fisheries specialist of the University of Minnesota Sea Grant. This is Barry Thole, owner and operator of Lincoln Bait. Thole has been in the bait business since 1987. In 1998, he started his farm, located in Staples, Minnesota. Thole designed and built his farm setup to ensure that he could deliver the best product to residents and businesses in the area. Since then, Lincoln Bait has provided the Staples area of Minnesota with a live bait supply that includes a variety of minnow types.
Can you give us just a little bit of an overview before we get into some specific questions about how you do your bait industry, how you capture them, whether you're growing them on site, so our audience has a kind of a feel for where we're going here?
I started out wild harvest, but watching the decline over the years of these populations, mainly because how they're harvested, I started looking at growing the fish on site.
When harvesting wild-caught bait, Thole predominantly uses a seine, with the help of some traps and the addition of his own creative modifications, so he is able to seine by himself. The species of bait minnows that Thole catches and rears include common shiners, golden shiners, and red-tailed chubs.
You know, we're standing in front of your distribution truck here, which is a big part of your business, right?
Yeah.
Can you explain, you know, what do you do with the tanks? Or do you have additional oxygen, temperature? How do you control the environment once the fish are in the tank?
Well, these tanks are homemade. We use pure oxygen for transporting fish. I don't use agitators because the fish tend to swim into current and they brush against the agitator, so that causes damage to the fish, scrapes the slime layer off the outside of the fish. My fish are caught in the wild and brought back and put in ponds. So we transport in warm water. Pure oxygen works best, and then we use ultrafine pore diffusers so that I get the most bang for my buck with the oxygen. We use less oxygen than most people do because we have smaller bubble size and better diffusion into the water.
Do you ever transport directly to a bait shop, or do they all come to your farm first?
They all come to my farm. Because I have the ponds here, it gives me the ability to harvest in the wild, bring them back, put them in the pond. I have feed that I can keep the fish fed, and then I can sell them as needed, when I need it, when the market demands it. The advice I give other people: start small, work your way in, use your profits to drive your business. If you have to work outside, do so. I don't regret what I'm doing. There's a benefit to it, not only to me, but to society.
Great. And so we're going to share all our questions and panelists and Q&A at the end. So we're going to watch all these videos first and kind of see the whole atmosphere and environment of what Fresh Fish Finder has to offer. And so the next product type that we're going to talk about will be seafood. And it's very interesting because we hear a lot about wild caught and farm raised, but really the product is both the same when it's for food, and that would be seafood. And so we define seafood as freshwater and marine life that can be eaten and could be commercially harvested or raised on a farm. Approximately 75% of US seafood is imported, and global seafood production is currently about 50% wild caught and 50% farm raised. And so we would like to highlight these local producers that are both wild caught and farm raised, who raise fish for food or harvest fish for food. But wild caught fish are harvested from their natural environment by the commercial fishing industry in large volumes as needed to meet consumer demand. Wild caught fish and other aquatic life are often sold as seafood. And so this is fishermen that go out on their big boats and catch a lot of fish, and to be able to supply and have access to places such as restaurants, and why you have your lake whitefish dinner here if you go to the coast of the Great Lakes region. And so this video will highlight Daniel Grooms in Bayfield, Wisconsin, who manages the Red Cliff Fish Company. Take it away, Nicole.
My name is Daniel Grooms. I am a Red Cliff tribal member. I am the business manager of the Red Cliff Fish Company. I started May of 2021. Do grant work and things like that. We are technically under the tribal umbrella. We hope to eventually, towards the end of this year, to be on our own or be with another management company to keep us going, but we plan to be here for a long time. So currently we do, we primarily get whitefish and trout, lake trout. We do have our frozen fillets. We do sell them fresh as well, mainly to restaurants, also in our small retail storefront. smoked sugar-cured trout and whitefish by far are most popular. Those are fillets, no bones, and then we do have our chunks as well, which is your typical salt brine, lake trout and whitefish as well. Kind of more classic. Usually we see our older clientele prefer that, and occasionally we'll have some specialty items. If we have chubs in our herring, we'll typically smoke some of that as well. So typically currently now most of our product goes to the Bay Area here. For our restaurants, we do supply fish to a smokehouse in Duluth, and then we are also all the way down to the Twin Cities. We bring fish to a restaurant down there, the Indigenous Food Lab, which has been great to work with those guys. And then also from some of our wholesale standpoint, we send fish mainly into Michigan as well as Canada. For the most part. Eventually, we're looking at having an online store available, and then we'll be reaching all over the United States, hopefully. Well, in general, our main goal is a fresh, taken care of product. Is kind of my huge selling point is that we're very strict on our standards on the floor to make sure that each fillet is taken care of, and that way we get the freshest product. That's no bones, it's clean. That way you're getting the best flavor, best product in general. So we really pride ourselves on that. I think the guys out there do a phenomenal job, and we're hoping to expand and get into more value-added products, like dips, pickling, smoked packaging as well. So we're looking at branching out to bigger things. We're working at it one day at a time. So it's great to be able to work very closely with the community. We are working very closely with the fishermen, who a lot of them I've known since I was younger. So it's great to kind of have that relationship as well. But then we also provide a lot of fish and products, tours and demonstrations for the youth, as well as our elder programs, as well, to provide fish as a healthier alternative in protein for our food distribution. Then with the elder box, which is, we work with Feeding Wisconsin on that one. So it's actually, last year was a pilot program. This year they are doubling the order. So that's great for us. It's a lot more work for sure. But then we're also able to allow smoke products as well, which they weren't able to do last year. So we've actually worked it out where every other will do frozen packs, and then we'll do smoked fish on the next month and so forth. And that program will start this next May and goes all the way into December. And then we currently do these dipper programs, which are tribally run or organized. So we provide fish for our food distribution for that particular program for its needs, and then Oneida and Menominee as well. And it's just the only program we've done so far that have been really interested in trout. Like typically it's whitefish, which is, we get so much more but these ones in particular really prefer trout. So it's a little bit more of a process to break everything down by hand, but we do what we can to kind of prioritize that program. But it's going pretty well, and everyone seems pretty nice. I've made deliveries, and their facilities are amazing. We're very happy to be able to provide fish products, healthy alternatives to the tribe, especially these other box programs, but also the Bayfield School. The order we're currently working on is for them. So it's just kind of getting the entire community involved, and not only just that, but also the Bay Area, places that directly interact with Red Cliff. All the restaurants downtown and our visitors as well, so they get to get a feel of what that is. Providing that or keeping that tradition alive, I think is pretty cool, and we're happy to be here. We're lucky to be able to do that.
Awesome. And so if you guys have any questions as you think of them, feel free to put them in the chat. We have a great team and behind the scenes here who's capturing that, and we will answer them at the end just so you don't forget them. So just a friendly reminder of that. But we're going to continue talking about our food fish, and now we're looking at seafood in terms of farm raised. Farm raised or aquaculture, sometimes also called fish farming or fish culture, lots of terms for this, but it's really just the farming of fish and other aquatic life, and other popular ones like seaweed and things like that. But in aquaculture, a farmer helps in the growing process in some way to increase the production of fish for food. But aquaculture is also used for stocking bait, fee fishing, and ornamentals. And so we've heard from bait, and we'll touch on the other products as well after we talk about my favorite, food. And so we're gonna go into Western Lower Michigan there in Henrietta, Michigan with Dan Vogler and his company, Henrietta Hills Trout Farm. Take it away, Nicole.
So can you introduce yourself and tell us how did this farm get started?
I'm Dan Vogler, and I own Henrietta Hills Trout Farm with my parents, Jim and Catherine, and we have been on this farm for about 20 years, since 2001. We actually started in the trout business at a smaller farm downstate originally, but this farm has been here since the late 1940s. And we're actually the 5th owners of this facility. So the majority of our production is flow through. The majority of it is on diverted water. 2 different water sources. We have well water for the hatchery, and then the natural feature that really makes this farm possible at the production levels that we have is Sligo Creek, which is a glacial outwash stream with a very consistent cold flow. So the main thing that we grow is rainbow trout, and you have rainbow trout in front of you. This is our January 2021 hatch. So they have, these fish have already, this is their 3rd production stage. So the first production stage is hatching in heath trays. Then they move over to this area, which is our feed training area. And then once they've been through feed training, they're going to move here into the tanks. And from tanks, they're going to go into other tanks. And from the other tanks, then they're going to go into the raceways outside. So our primary market is trout for food, for human consumption. So we have about a 2-year production cycle of getting fish up to market size. Our target market size is about 1.25 pounds average, and the rainbows that we produce then are trucked down live to our processor distribution partner in Grand Rapids. Which is Superior Foods. Superior processes the fish in Grand Rapids and then distributes them, most of them regionally in the Great Lakes area, but some of them farther, just depending on the customer at the time. But yeah, so most of the fish that we put on the truck are headed out for food.
Can you just describe a little bit about your pond management side of the business and how people can access that service?
Our pond and water management business is not only around game fish stocking, but we also offer a wide variety of pond products, including aeration equipment. We do aeration equipment installations. We also have other types of pond management materials, chemicals, algicides, herbicides, things like that. When chemical control may be necessary, we offer just all kinds of different equipment, in terms of fish feeders, weed cutters, rakes. I mean, pretty much everything and anything that you can imagine that you need to manage a pond or lakefront.
That's awesome. Do people, if they want to access that, go online or come directly to your operation there? How do people get that stuff?
Yeah, so multiple ways. Obviously, you can always get a hold of us on the telephone, just like we used to in the good old days. But we do have a fully functional web store. Obviously, that offers a lot of product information, and people can either purchase things directly off the web store, or they can give us a call. We also, do specialize in installing equipment. So if people are interested in having us design and install a custom system, or problems with pond weeds, or just whatever needs to be dealt with.
And then the last question is, what's your favorite part about running Harrietta Hills?
Well, the favorite part is also the least favorite part sometimes, and it's the daily variety and challenge of this type of business. There's never. It's very unusual when there's 2 days that are the same in a row. So there's a lot of variety in what we do, and I enjoy that part.
Awesome. And so now we're going to change gears back to what other aquaculture type products can you find from local producers? And we're going to go to the other side of the state of Michigan and look at what fee fishing is. And fee fishing is really recreational fishing experience for anglers who pay a fee or pay by the pounds kind of service to fish a private business or a landowner's stocked pond. I like to say it's like grocery shopping, but with an experience. And so it's kind of a great way to get started into fishing if you don't know anybody who really knows how to fish, but this is a great opportunity where they provide equipment and the knowledge and really teach you, and a great experience the first time to go out fishing. Or if you're tired of not catching any fish, you can head out there too. So we're gonna go to Dexter, Michigan with Jim Crutcher at Spring Valley Trout Farm. Take it away, Nicole.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jim Carricker. I own the Spring Valley Trout Farm here in Dexter, Michigan, which is in southeast Michigan, about an hour west of the city of Detroit. We opened in 1970, and it was my dad's love of fish, and he wanted a farm pond here on our property, and we're very fortunate. We put the first pond in. We hit some very large natural springs, and that enabled us to keep trout alive and to be able to raise trout. Fast forward to, this is our 53rd year. I've been here since the start. My dad and I built and created this farm, and my degree is actually in business, which has been a big help because we can produce the fish, but we also have to be able to sell the fish.
What kind of products and services do you offer?
Primarily fishing for rainbow trout and channel catfish. And both of those we offer, and they're separated so that you have your choice of what you would like to fish for. And we're very blessed that we do not sell the fish anyplace else. It's just people coming to the farm, either fishing for them, or they can pre-order either of those species, and we'll have them prepared and ready for them to pick up. We just kind of experimented with them, with the farm-raised catfish, and they were very tasty. And when we first started, they said, "Oh, that's just people. They stay on the bottom. They're mud eaters and this and that." And I said, "Well, now the catfish farmers have marketed them so well that people now know how good they are, because they're grain-fed and they're clean, because they're coming out of a clean environment and out of ponds. And once people try them, it's very mild. And now we sell just as many catfish as trout. And we're the only place in the state of Michigan that has a true farm-raised catfish. And I put that meat up against anything. I love grouper. It's as good as grouper to me. Walleye, any of it. farm-raised catfish is so good. We make it very easy for folks because we actually provide everything. The bait, the poles, all of the tackle. We call it one-stop shopping. Or if they want to bring their own rod and reel, they certainly can. We check it out, help them string it, so they have that great experience. So many kids get a fishing rod for Christmas or for a birthday, and they can use it right here, or we provide that for them. We provide all the bait, everything that you need. We even have incredible staff that walks the grounds and will help you unhook the fish, or if you need a little extra help, they're glad to help you. And then the joy is, after we clean it and process it, you have incredible fish to take home for the grill or to enjoy later. And that's the most incredible thing, is that we're truly farm to table. There's not many places where people can come and say, hey, I caught my dinner. The best part about fish is it's universally loved. And I think that's another great thing about our business, is that we have every culture is represented, and it is just so much fun to see that and how everybody gets along. And it's the love of fish, especially fresh fish. And when you try a fish that's raised in a controlled environment, and we can control the feed, we can control the water, we know that there's no chemicals that enter our water system, so this makes these fish as pure as humanly possible. And it's also something that's sustainable, that it's a crop that we're raising that's excellent to eat, and it's so good for you. And we don't worry about any outside contaminants. We can control it. So that's what's sustained us all these years.
We need more we need more worms.
Oh, some worms? If you go right inside there and ask them, Miss Jeannie will get you some, okay? My favorite part of running this business, trout farm, is the interactions with our fishermen, our customers, which I consider to be part of our family. If you've been in business over 50 years like we have, we've made some incredible relationships with our fishermen, and we've watched their children grow up, and now they're bringing their grandchildren. But the biggest smile on our face is when a child catches their first fish, and the pure joy and the fun and excitement of that. And we're introducing them to a sport that will literally last their lifetime.
Awesome. Oh, it makes me want to go fishing. So aquaculture though. So our next product is fish for stocking, right? So fish for stocking is the product from raising fish, then releasing the fish back into some kind of aquatic feature, whether it's a pond, river, lake, or ocean. So these fish are released for fishing or to help manage fish populations, and may also be referred to as stockfish, stockies, or planted fish. I know here in Michigan, we typically say hatcheries, and they're planted from hatcheries for recreational fishing or for another conservation effort and things like that. And so fish for stocking is the Great Lakes region's most commonly product from aquaculture farms in the region. A lot of the time people think food when it comes to aquaculture, but here in the region, we pride ourselves with stocking. And so we're gonna go a little farther south in Indiana, where we'll meet with Matt Rawl and his business, American Pond and Lake Management. Take it away, Nicole.
Well, hey, this is Matt Rail, American Pond and Lake Management. I'm glad you guys are here. So I started 20 years ago in the pond and lake management business, and it really wasn't even a business back then. It was basically a lot of people just needing help with their problems with their ponds and lake. I am in central Indiana. We are a lake management company. We do all things lakes. Well, what does that mean? That means that if you have a nuisance vegetation issue, we come in and take a look at that, control it, sometimes even eradicate it if needed, if it's an invasive. Does it mean that we work with fish? Yeah, absolutely. We work a lot with fishery work and consulting and even pond design. I will say this, that we do a lot of consulting anymore with electrofishing. We go in and actually take a boat, sit it down. We actually see the population estimate of your fish. At the same time, we look at a lot of nuisance vegetation or habitat that is needed or ones that need to go. We set up an action plan usually for the customer, and then we follow that action plan the best of our ability, because Mother Nature always has the last word. We do sell and raise a lot of fish. I would say that we do have 22 fish hatchery ponds, and then also an indoor facility that we can raise some fish inside, which we raise red ear, we raise bluegill, catfish, largemouth bass, walleye, yellow perch, and of course the wonderful hybrid and native bluegill sunfish. So all those are that we raise those. And why do we raise those in our hatchery and our indoor facility? Well, it's just great to have them on hand for what a certain size that a customer needs. And it allows us to be a little more flexible on when the stocking needs to be done. For instance, if it needs to be done before the fish was to spawn or be this correct size for it to go in that year to get into the recruitment cycle, then we have the products that we need on hand. If you were going to ask me the words of wisdom, do you have it, about pond stocking? And if you were going to think about, having their pond stocked, I would say the words of wisdom would be just don't pull up and just grab some fish from anywhere thinking that you need to stock. If you just want a bluegill pond, you just need to go get bluegill, or your bass are small and so therefore you need to go get more bass. That's exactly what we see is a lot of problems with our industry. Usually when you have a small fish, there's a reason why, and it's not usually the fish. And you may not even need to add fish. Maybe be that it's hungry, didn't have enough habitat, or just the water quality of the home is not always where it needs to be. That whole realm of lake management, and that's kind of where we fit, helping the customer design an action plan for their goals, look at the problems and hindrances that are in front of them, and then we create that and follow that action plan best we can. The best part of running a business is just being outside with people and little people about ponds and lakes. There's something just purely spiritual about them that, for instance, some of the best experiences that I had growing up was with my father sitting when it's quiet, fishing and catching catfish or bluegill with a bobber out there. That's when we had some of our best conversation. I would always get mad because his equipment was not very good and the string would get all tied up, and why was he spending all this time fixing his rod when he should be fishing? Well, he wasn't. Later on when I became a dad, he wasn't there to go catch fish. He was there to spend time with me, and I think that imprinted me with that time imprinted me when I was very little. And so the best part of my business is seeing smiles at the pond's edge, goals reached by beautification or wildlife for a customer. May it be if it's a 5-year-old catching a 5-inch bluegill with a great big smile, or a 40 or 55-year-old man catching a 5-pound walleye, the smile and the joy is still the same, and that's what keeps me in business.
Great. And so it brings us to our last product found on the Great Lakes Fresh Fish Finder, and that's ornamentals. Ornamental fish are sometimes called pet fish or aquarium fish and other aquatic life that are often bought for their appearance right? So if they're pretty, or kept for personal enjoyment, such as aquariums, water gardens like outside, or decorative ponds. Koi fish are commonly one of the species that are ornamentals. And so this is more of the pet store option, but it is aquaculture, right? It's having that human intervention of some kind for management of fish growth. And so we're gonna finish our tour around the Great Lakes region in New Albany, Ohio, where we'll hear from Todd Melman from Reef Systems Coral Farm. Take it away, Nicole.
My name is Todd Melman. This is Reef Systems Coral Farm, and we are in New Albany, Ohio, just outside Columbus, Ohio. We're like I think 20 minutes from downtown, northeast of Columbus. Yeah, so we have the retail location that you're standing at, and then we have our online site at reefsystems.com. We've been here for 15 years. I started a lot longer. Like in 1999, I started a service company that led into the coral farm and the koi as well. We focus on live coral. We do bring in mariculture, which is animals that were raised in the marine environment, and they have CITES permits for them. And the biggest one that we do is clams. So we bring in clams from reputable sources. They are not wild clams, meaning they are mariculture. They respond for the aquarium trade or food. We bring them in small sizes and then we raise them up. But coral is definitely the main focus. And then koi came years later. We actually spawn koi, we sell koi, we clean koi. We do bring in a small percentage of Japanese fish because there's people that want Japanese fish over domesticated, which I completely understand. But we also breed from Japanese bloodlines and they're completely isolated. So it's not a huge focus of my business, but people that know us know if they want a clean fish that they come to us because we're not intentionally selling animals that came right out of our ponds and right into sale. And then we also sell aquacultured fish from other reputable suppliers. So we've been doing business with a company, for instance, called ORA, Ocean Reefs and Aquariums. We only buy fish from them. And there's another company as well that we buy fish from, but we really focus on their fish and isolating them and keeping them separate from all the wild fish that we bring in. So that we can offer everything's about aquaculture and clean. So we're only trying to achieve those specimens here to be able to resell them. We are a true saltwater coral farm. I don't know how many species of corals we have. I started with the website, we started to actually start listing everything. But to give you one example, there's a coral called Monopora. We have 23 to 27 different species of Monopora. So that's just one. Like the Possilopora that we have, I probably have 12 different species of that coral. And it's really difficult to keep track of them all. Soon we're actually going to try to do DNA testing and genotyping on them for universities so that we can actually offer them to universities for research and whatnot. Or projects that they have going. However, I have animals I've had since, for 25 years. I have specific species that I've had that long, and a lot of them. And so, yes, my animals came from the wild at one point. They had to. And then we keep them, clean them, isolate them, quarantine them, and then we produce them by, dividing, by fission, literally cutting them. Some of them actually spawn in our systems, but that's the true thing. Even live rock, this industry is different than a lot of the industries that you're covering, but live rock, for instance, is something that used to be harvested from the wild, which takes away habitat. And so when I started this company 15 years ago, I've never brought live rock in. We culture it from land-based rock that was never taken from the wild, from quarries, mined down. Some of it used to be in Utah, some of it was in Florida, some of it was even in here in Ohio. But we culture it and sell it so that people can have, biological filtration for their tanks. But that's the real key. The real key is that we keep dividing. We keep bringing corals in from other customers. We still bring in some wild colonies, but it's a small percentage. It's less than 3% of what we actually sell. In a nutshell, that's basically it. It's a true aquaculture facility. We don't bring animals in, cut them up, and say we grew them. We're literally growing them year after year after year after year. When you get into a hobby like this, it costs you a lot of money and time and energy. We try to explain to people the pros and cons of what they're going to be doing. We try to shoot them in the right direction. And give them all the resources that we have. This hobby for people is all about problem solving. And that's actually where I wanted to educate people. That's where it all started. I wanted to educate people so people didn't go through what I went through. We do the education, we follow up with it. We consistently are there for the customer to try to fix the problems that they keep creating and explaining to them. And then one day, the person walks in and it's not even, it's like, how well is the tank doing? What are you gonna do with all your corals? They're bringing me buckets full of corals saying, Todd, I don't wanna deal with people online. I'd just like to have credit and like support my habit, which is what we talk about, people being addicted in the hobby because it becomes very addictive. It becomes addictive when you're successful. So reaching those people and allowing other people to have similar results that I've had, that's why I do it.
Nicole, you're on mute.
Thanks, Lauren, for walking us through the Great Lakes Fresh Fish Finder and letting us know about the different types of products that you will find available there, and this introduction to the 6 different businesses. So now we have representatives from Sea Grant and from one of our businesses to be available for our question and answer. This time of year is very busy for lots of folks in the fish business, just like agriculture. So today we have Amy Schrank with Minnesota Sea Grant, who will be here to answer questions about bait and about Lincoln Bait. We have Sharon Moen from Wisconsin Sea Grant to help answer questions about wild caught fish and Red Cliff Fish Company. We have Lauren doing double duty to answer questions about farm-raised fish and Harrietta Hills. We have Amy Schambach to help us answer questions about pond stocking and American pond and lake management. And we have Jim Karcher from Spring Valley Trout Farm to talk about fee fishing. So we are going to dive into some questions. Let's see. Is aquaculture only done by private businesses, or do agencies also use this approach for fisheries management? This might be a good question for Lauren to answer.
Yeah, so it's interesting because here in the US, aquaculture actually started with state management agencies. So like places like the Department of Natural Resources or the DNR. And so they have what are typically called fish hatcheries, and they would raise baby fish and to get to at least a 3 to 4 inch finger length size, and to be able to stock them in order to conserve and restore streams that might have been impacted from pollution or industry and things like that. And so we do have state and federal hatcheries. Actually, in the Great Lakes region, we also have tribal hatcheries as well. And then we do have private businesses. So on the Great Lakes Fresh Fish Finder, I believe it's for commercial aquaculture. So it's aquaculture for sale. And those are the private aquaculture businesses. Tax dollars go towards raising fish on the state and federal level.
Thanks, Lauren.
I'm also going to add in that the universities and training facilities also raise fish that are, and they're not private companies necessarily, but they're raising fish for research and to help the stocking programs and to help the aquaculture enterprises succeed here in northern climates.
Thanks, Sharon. Since we do have Jim on the line, Jim, can you tell us a little bit about the time of year that is that you're open, and kind of walk us through what someone can expect as they walk onto your farm?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we're open May through the end of September. And we just had a group of 45 school children from Pace Academy from the city of Detroit, just had their first fishing experience here. We're very fortunate that we get an incredible number of kids on field trips. And that's come back this year after a 2-year hiatus because of the pandemic. So they love coming out along with their other families. And like I had said in our video, everything is here that we supply, but they also like it that we're licensed by the state, so they don't have to have a fishing license, and they're guaranteed to catch great fish that's clean, and we process, clean it, ice it, and package it for them, and even offer taking the bones out. So like these 45 kids that just left, each child left here with their name on a bag with a processed rainbow trout that they just caught.
Great, thank you, Jim. So we did have a question about the status of yellow perch and walleye populations in the Great Lakes for commercial fishing. So maybe a few of folks on the line here can answer this question. Lauren, Amy, and Sharon can probably add some information for us here. Who wants to go first?
I'll just jump in quickly and just say that the yellow perch in Lake Erie is generally declining. The commercial fishery, the catches have declined over the years, and that's sort of expected to continue. The walleye fishery I know less about, so I'll turn that over to one of these other two.
Oh, yes, commercial fishing. Very interesting. And so I think the Great Lakes region is very unique in that we have each lake is managed by various sovereign nations. And so Lake Erie, it's managed by Pennsylvania, New York, Ohio, Michigan, and Ontario. And so those groups look at fisheries management and decide a way for sustainable practices and kind of divide up those allocations of what fish they want, of what species, and then based on their internal values of that sovereign nation. So say Michigan, we will allocate certain amounts to whether it be commercial fishing or recreational. Majority of commercial fishing in Lake Erie is really from Ontario and Canada. Very, very few commercial harvesters on the US side. It's mostly managed for a recreational fishery.
And I will jump in with specifics about the perch and walleye. So it depends on where you are. So in the Green Bay area of Lake Michigan, the perch population is doing really rather well right now, but in Lake Michigan as a whole, it is not. And say walleye, around the Apostle Islands are doing quite well, but it's not like you can go out commercially harvesting walleye in the middle of Lake Superior. So that's why most of the catch was from Erie, but as the food web has been so dramatically changing due to invasive mussels and other things in the food system and how things have changed, the populations are so spotty. So I suppose that's why a lot of effort is going into raising both perch and walleye on land, because they're a popular Midwest fish to eat. And there's fewer guarantees that the population is going to rebound from some of the lows it's experiencing now.
And so continuing from that, that's Sharon, right, on that side of the Midwest, but in like Saginaw Bay and Michigan, a lot of the yellow perch has been on the decline, but walleye are increasing and kind of controlling the food web. So there's no need to stock walleye for sure over that way, but so populations aren't static, they're always in flux. So that's something to keep in mind during for things for such as stocking and planting fish.
And I'll add that for each of our states, it's the Department of Natural Resources or a similarly named entity that is managing those fisheries in the Great Lakes. And here in Ohio, I know, for example, they put out a report every year on the status of the fishery and the commercial catch. So you can find those online, probably for all of our states, or contact your Department of Natural Resources and they'll have more information about that as well. We did have a question about recirculating aquaculture systems. It's kind of a longer one. So our land-based systems like recirculating aquaculture systems becoming a more common or feasible means to raise fish for consumer market in the Midwest? Has the technology increased the output of consumable fish in recent years? And could this technology mean even more fish can be harvested, possibly more sustainably than other means for getting fish to consumers? I think Amy Schaumbach is going to start us off for this one.
So recirculating aquaculture technology has become more common in the last 10 to 20 years. It is still an emerging industry, and we're seeing that size and species can be a factor. So for example, we have recirculating systems in multiple states. I'm in the state of Indiana, and we have farms raising tilapia and barramundi and recirculating systems for the live fish market. And those are small to medium size farms. We are seeing an emergence of larger scale recirculating aquaculture systems. And this is a little bit where the feasibility question, I think, is still being answered. So, and that mostly is when it comes to, I think, economic feasibility. And those are still to be determined because those have really high input costs. But they're looking at the sustainability of systems, the reuse of water, and there's been a lot of innovation in technology that's came with those systems. So that is definitely something that is being looked at for fish production in the future, and to be able to produce fish in land-based areas, to be able to supplement fish from other areas. Because when you look at the demand for fish, it's not going to be one or the other. It's going to be a little bit of everything. And if I didn't answer your question, let me know what to add on.
Thanks, Amy. One more question going back to yellow perch. Someone asked if the decline is due to the spiny water flea.
So I added in an answer just now, sorry for that, to just, it's really complex, and I'm happy to talk more offline, or feel free to use the Great Lakes Fishery Commission's website to talk more about that as well.
Thanks. Before we go, I wanted to also just mention that we have two other great websites in the region that are similar yet different. Sharon, if you want to take a minute and introduce people to Eat Wisconsin Fish and tell them a little bit about how it's different than the Great Lakes Fish Finder.
Right, so the Eat Wisconsin Fish website has a map on it in a similar way that the Great Lakes Fish Finder does, but it concentrates only on Wisconsin food fish. So we're having the aquaculture farms and commercial fisheries in the places where you can market those products, as well as the places that do research for those products. So it's food fish, aquaculture, and wild caught fish on this website. And the Great Lakes Fish Finder also has the ornamentals, the stocking programs, etc. So that's how I explain that. We have recipes too.
Thanks, Sharon. And Amy
Yeah.
Schaumbach, do you want to talk a minute about Eat Midwest Fish?
Absolutely. So Eat Midwest Fish it's got a little bit broader region. So it includes 6 of the Great Lakes states, but it also includes 6 non-Great Lakes states. So it goes out to North Dakota, South Dakota, Kansas, Missouri, I'm missing something, Nebraska and Iowa. And that is all aquaculture food fish. So it does include a map that has farms that are raising food fish, but it is also focused on food education. So recipes, cooking demos, and also featuring farmers so people can see how fish are raised throughout the region.
Thanks, Amy. The Great Lakes Fresh Fish Finder has been up and active since last September. So any feedback that you have, we welcome it. You can find a list of your Sea Grant state representatives on the website. We are constantly adding businesses to the site. I think what is unique is that we have these different product types that are represented. We have aquaculture and wild caught. And we hope that this site can be really useful for really exploring what is available in the region, being able to shop locally for those different types of products, and kind of discovering that there's probably a lot more going on in this realm than you realized. So any last words from any of our panelists today? I want to thank everyone. There are a lot of hands that made this possible today, so thanks everyone for your contribution. But any final thoughts?
Yeah, I guess there was one question at the very beginning, right, with about minority business owners, but I think aquaculture as a whole is a minority, and I think it's just something that I know GLAC is really diving into. So in terms of just being very literate and knowing what aquaculture is and what it looks like, I think that's where these videos were awesome, right? To just kind of take a tour around the Great Lakes region and see what does aquaculture offer. And so no, we do not have minority highlighted. We do really acknowledge and work with tribal nations as well. But I think as 80% of our seafood around that is imported, I think all of it depending on how you define minority, but personally, I would say U.S. aquaculture is the minority. So all of them are such. So thanks for that question. I guess I'll leave that to everybody and just kind of learn a little bit more every time we talk together. And this is great. So thank you, Nicole.
Okay, well, with that, thanks everyone. You will be able to find a recording of this webinar on Ohio Sea Grant's YouTube page, along with a playlist of the different videos that were featured. And until next time, we'll see you. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, everyone.